Welcome to John and Dave TV. I'm John.
And I'm Dave. This show is to bring the community back together. We're going through a very hard time right now with everything, the self-isolation and everything else. And we thought maybe we should bring new skills or new hobbies to you in your home that you're able to do with us.
So make sure you join us on every episode where you can learn something new every time to try and help get you through this whole staying at home situation.
Today on a Dave and John show.
It's the John and Dave show.
We're shut down as well. We kind of went from 60 to 0. We were really expanding and doing really well. And then this COVID thing kind of put a stop in our tracks. We've tried to be productive and use that time to get over to our new facility, where we have a ring now we didn't have before. We don't share space with the jiu-jitsu, so it's easier for scheduling.
All right, welcome to another episode of John and Dave TV. Dave, I've been talking to somebody online, a lot of people, and they've been talking about how they've been fighting through their way through this COVID-19 with just staying at home, and they just can't wait to get out. And it brought me into this little wavelength of fighting and that, because I know my daughter, she's been telling me for years that she wants to do something different. She's going into a teenage, like 19 years old, she's coming adult, and I always worry about her a bit. So I thought boxing would be a perfect thing to her to get into for self-defense. You ever thought of something like that for your daughters too, or?
Boxing, I don't know. I think she might start hurting me if I start teaching her box. Show her how to box. That could be dangerous.
I told her about martial arts. She wasn't really interested. And when I mentioned about this Pembroke Boxing Club they had downtown, she was actually interested in going to see the place and that, trying to get her there is the other thing, because she's hanging out with her friends and that. So I thought, what a better way to do our show than why not bring the boxing club to us and to everybody else. So I thought today would be a good day to bring our guest that we have today, which is, of course, Jason Burgoyne from the Pembroke Boxing Club. Jason, welcome and thanks for being here today.
Hey, thanks, John. Hey, Dan.
So give us a little bit of history there about the Pembroke Boxing Club, how you got starting into boxing yourself, and then how the boxing club came apart.
So I've always been you were talking about martial artists. I started out in martial arts. I had a lot of fun in my younger days. I joined the military, came here, and got into military martial arts through jiu-jitsu. And my road kind of started from there. There was an older fellow, I think he's still around, Bud Richardson, who used to have his boxing club in town. And that's where I got my boxing start, was with him. So I actually started in Pembroke. And a friend of mine was a competitor, and he's had Pembroke Boxing Club for years. At one point when we both retired, he wanted me to help him assistant coach. It was going to be a bit much for him. He came out of the military with some disabilities. And it was the right time in my life, and I discovered that it was the thing that I needed, that I was having a hard time adjusting to civilian life and didn't know who I was and where I fit in things, and started boxing or started coaching, and that I wish I'd started 20 years ago. I bought his club, and I'm now the head coach. We've been around for 3 years now, competing for a little over 2. In the province, we've won 7 gold medals at provincial tournaments. For a small club, it's pretty good. We compete as much as we can. And then just this past year, we started expanding, and we brought in the best jiu-jitsu team in Canada in Evolution. We're partnered with them now. Okay. And we're actually now, that this COVID thing has started, we've moved into a much bigger and better facility, and are bringing in mixed martial arts, Muay Thai, and hopefully judo as well. So we're going to be a whole combat sports facility.
Very cool.
So it's not just boxing then, it's a whole bunch of different types of martial arts?
Right. So we started under boxing, which is why we're Pembroke Boxing Club. We'll always be Team PBC. Everything else is affiliated with us. But as we move along, we're trying to expand and bring a greater depth of martial art to the club.
So I want to start boxing, but I have no background in martial arts or nothing. Am I still able to start boxing, or do I have to have a background, learn jiu-jitsu like you did previously? Or
nope. I prefer when people know nothing.
Don't learn any bad habits, eh?
I mean, unless
Dave, you'd be perfect for that.
unless people have come from another club and they've got boxing experience, I prefer when they have none. It's, I mean, there are some sports, if you get a dancer or a hockey player or a soccer player, they're super easy to coach. But other than that, I prefer they almost have no combat sports experience.
Very cool. So now, like you mentioned it yourself, we're going through this whole, at the time of this recording, we're still going through this little COVID-19 lockdown. Businesses are starting to get to open up a little bit now. But through this whole process over the last month or so, how have you guys been dealing through this COVID-19? Have you had to shift a lot of your stuff online and do sort of like Skype or Zoom type training, or do you still run it business as is, or?
We didn't. We're shut down as well. We kind of went from 60 to 0. We were really expanding and doing really well. And then this COVID thing kind of put a stop in our tracks. We've tried to be productive and use that time to get over to our new facility, where we have a ring now we didn't have before. We don't share space with the jiu-jitsu, so it's easier for scheduling. But to be honest, I mean, revenue has certainly dipped to 0. We've got nothing coming in when there's no. It's difficult for a combat sports facility because we don't have a whole lot of online to do. Mm-hmm. I know that some of our clubs around the province are offering online classes, and we have thought about the same. To be honest, the only thing that's been keeping me from it is I don't know how. So I've been talking to a couple of coaches, and they're kind of leading me through it. So we'll probably start up in the next week or so.
That's cool, because I know with the dance classes, sometimes they'll do that. They'll have an instructor maybe show different moves for the students to practice and stuff, and send them out on a link that they can go watch it. Other ones are doing like Zoom programs where they can actually be there and talking to the client and work them and get them, like you can maybe have them demonstrating something and say, no, that's not right. Try doing this way. Right. So it might be something beneficial. You never know. But I have a feeling, I don't know about you. Do you think this will be a bit more of a wave of the future too, where you will have, of course, nothing will compare to having them come into your studio and working out in person with you. Of course, nothing's going to be better than that. But is there going to be a way that for people that can't maybe do that, or they're from out of town, but they still want to train with you, you can maybe incorporate that in the future? It's
funny. Before this had started, we had actually considered doing online coaching. Mm-hmm. So exactly that, where we'll give somebody a lesson online. They can watch it, and then they reproduce it and send me a video back that I can critique or watch them live in Zoom or something like that. But that's been something that I've been thinking about a lot. One of the things that we've been doing to stay sharp, I say we, that's my son and I, because he's my junior coach and best boxer actually. One of the things we've been doing to stay sharp is participating on Reddit, which might seem strange. There's a subreddit for amateur boxing, and it's very commonly people putting in they'll submit their sparring, or they'll submit their bag work or their shadow boxing, and they're looking for critique. Well, for the most part, it's other amateur boxers, so I think I'm the only coach on the forum. So I get a lot of questions, and I get a lot of I've been making tutorial videos for Reddit users. I've been posting them online as well, but they're primarily for these Reddit users who have questions. But it keeps your coaching skills up. It keeps your eyes sharp.
Definitely.
Certainly doesn't help the boxers who are at my gym, but it helps me.
Exactly.
So we have had an element of online with the online videos and the tutorials and things like that.
Very cool.
So just recently, we just at the time of this taping, we just saw gyms over in Florida starting competition again, and starting that was for the MMA fighting, and starting fighting, and how they haven't really changed the way that things kind of go with this COVID and all that, and they already had kind of a situation there. I would assume that the industry would probably go and change and make their, I guess, the rules in the next few coming months, coming weeks, kind of different. How do you see things shaping up for your type of industry?
Well, it's the MMA in the States. I don't know how to explain that, because now, although it's professional, and professional falls under different rules and regulations and organizing bodies than we do, they still answer to governmental authority. So I don't know how they did their shows. I know that they're doing it without spectators, but I don't know how they're conforming to the state laws under emergency powers to do this. Nonetheless, it's not possible for us. Boxing Ontario and Boxing Canada have suspended all events until further notice, which of course just falls in line with what Premier Doug Ford has done. He has said no events for congregations of more than, I think, 50. And you're certainly not going to have much of a show with fewer than 50 people there. So until they come out and say that these events are good again, and then that trickles down to the Ontario ruling organizations, we're doing nothing. I suspect that what will happen is that we will start training first.
Yep.
The government will say, you can open up again. Our ruling bodies don't have a whole lot to say about that. We can train as soon as the government says we can train. So we don't have to wait from Boxing Canada or Boxing Ontario to open up again. We will have to open up. We will have to pay attention to when the government says you can open up, and we can't compete, of course, until both the organizations and Ontario both say that competitions are now open.
Definitely. Well, I do want to get eventually into more of your actual studio stuff and the programs you offer and things like that, and talk about your staff. But now that Dave's brought up the whole competition thing, I know your son has been doing a lot of competitions over the last couple of years. I've seen posting of him going and competing in different boxing matches, actually competing in my hometown of Brampton, just outside of Toronto there. Maybe talk a little bit about your son and how he got into it and how he's progressed into boxing, because he's not very old himself. He's a teenager himself. So
yeah, he's 16. He's 16. So
he's give him a little bit of press here. Why not?
He's been competing for a little over a year, probably about a year and a half. And if I'm to be completely honest, he's always liked combat sports. I mean, we've got pictures of him, when he's 4 years old, dressed up in my winter gloves and beating on his toys, you know what I mean? So, I mean, he's always loved it. We've always watched boxing and MMA. And he did jiu-jitsu for a while, too. But he's never been what you would consider a tough boy. So he's a sweet boy. I mean, that's what he is. He's a good, clean-cut boy.
Yeah.
So when he picked up boxing, and he has since admitted this, but when he picked up boxing, we suspected that he did it because I liked it. So it was a way for him and I to bond. It was a way for him to kind of please Dad. And then he really got into it. He started winning and didn't stop winning. And strangely, he's turned into one of the toughest guys I've ever met in the ring. Outside the ring, he's still the same as always. But in the ring, he's tough. And it doesn't help.
Babyface there.
What's that?
You can nickname him Babyface.
That's right.
Because he's got that innocent babyface look, but then when he gets in the ring, he's a totally different kid.
Well, that's it. It's funny. He took his nickname because he wants to go professional. He wants to go to the Olympics and then eventually go professional. He took his nickname from a couple of his idols. He idolizes guys like Pernell Whitaker and Oscar de la Hoya. Well, he used to get made fun of by one of my assistant coaches because he was the owner's son. So the owner's son would get asked to go do that, and he'd like, oh, okay. He would always tell him that he hated legacy kids. He hated golden boys. So he ended up calling himself the Golden Boy, and as of now, he's the Ottawa Valley Golden Boy. And he wrote to Oscar de la Hoya to ask him permission to use the nickname and to tell him to watch because there's a new Golden Boy in town.
Awesome.
So we hear of your son's inspiration and, what he looks up to for boxing. What are your inspiration? What do you look up to?
Strange at this point in my life. Of course, I've got a bucket list of the great boxers that I'd love to meet. I'd love to meet Lennox Lewis. I'd love to meet Mike. Well, I mean, we went to see Mike Tyson. I haven't met him, but I saw him at an event. Which was very cool. George Foreman, all the old boxers, and of course I followed new boxing as well. But my inspirations come a little closer to home. My inspiration comes from the other coaches in Ontario. There are some coaches in Ontario doing some absolutely outstanding things. We've got some coaches doing some high quality coaches doing Boxing Without Borders for disabled people. We've got kids programs. We've got large gyms that will sacrifice profit for smaller gyms. They'll allow small gyms to take the profit that really truthfully belongs to them. It's really quite a community. And to see some of the things that the coaches do for the communities and for their boxers is inspirational. So I take my inspiration from gyms like that, from Combat Arts, from Huff Boxing, from Gideon, especially from Beaver Boxing in Ottawa. We get a lot of help and interaction between us and them. So I really take my inspiration from those people.
That's very cool. And I was looking at your website. So you have a lot of different programs, like you were just mentioning there. Like for children's one, you have a kids one I noticed on there. What's the youngest that if people wanted to bring their kids in, what's the youngest they can come in? How does that work? And what other kind of programs do you offer, and what's in those services?
So we do have a kids program. My son runs the kids program along with two of our other female champions, Laura and Brooklyn. And the three of them run the kids program, and they start from 5 or 6, and they go all the way till between 10 and 12. I find that 5 to 10 is the most active ages. By the time they hit 11 and 12, they're starting to look at the adult classes and thinking maybe that might be cool too. But it's a fantastic class. There's no contact in any of the classes actually, except for the competitors. They're the only ones that have any kind of contact, light or heavy. And it's really kind of a learning environment. And we have to say we pride ourselves on being a family environment. When you're a member of the club, we consider you a member of the family, and everybody seems to treat each other like that. It's a really fun place to be. At least even just for me, I know I enjoy my classes like that. We've got a women's class, which is one of my very favorite to teach. Very high energy. The women are hilarious. Well, you know what? It's a different feel. When you get a group of men in there, and I love my guys too, obviously, but guys come in from a different angle. There's never a
mindset.
It's a different mindset. There's never a guy that you're ever going to meet in the world who's ever going to say that when the chips are down, they don't know how to fight. So always something in the back of their head, kind of resisting being taught how to.
Yeah.
Women come in with a blank slate, and for the most part, and listen and learn really well, and they're less combat sports attitude than they are just there to have fun. And even the ones who are there thinking they might want to fight, it's a different atmosphere, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Would you look at that as like, if a woman's looking for some sort of a self-defense type of class, but they don't want to go martial arts, do you think the boxing would be a good transformation for that, or do you recommend more of a martial arts type of? I
don't actually, and I'll tell you, I'll probably catch some flack from my friends in the martial arts community for this. I don't feel that martial arts is a good way to learn self-defense. It's not because they're not useful. It's not because they're not complete systems of fighting, but in a physical confrontation, I have maintained this always, even when I was just a martial artist. I say just a martial artist. I hope you know what I mean by that. Even when I was restricted to only martial arts as opposed to combat sports, in a physical confrontation, a fighter will always beat a martial artist. If that distinction makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because martial arts is not just about fighting. There's other things to fighting. But the thing about combat sports is it is fighting. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing that can get you ready for a physical confrontation than actual physical confrontation.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
It's the fact that boxing, Muay Thai, and Jiu-Jitsu are all based on real life, real interactions and sparring. And I know that other martial arts will spar. This is a hard point to be clear on. Part of boxing technique is sparring. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I used to spar stand up and when I used to do Japanese jiu-jitsu. But the instructors, because it's not an art about sparring, the instructors didn't have the same acumen. They didn't have the same experience to be able to tell you what to do in each given situation, not what technique to use, but what strategy to use. And that's actually part of every combat sport, and that makes it superior in physical confrontations only to martial arts for self-defense. I feel like it's the best thing to be able to train to get punched in the face is getting punched in the face.
Hey, you can't be more blunt than that.
Right?
So parents that are not really familiar and want to get their kids going in boxing and all that, I'm kind of wondering, what would I expect? I bring my my 6-year-old into the gym, and what's going to happen with him? How is his progression going to go, and how do they start into boxing? You mentioned non-physical, but what does their training look like?
So the kids are a lot of fun. Their training is different than other training. With children, it's not about what techniques you learn or the reps that you get in an individual class. With kids, the goal is developing a relationship with the sport. So by that I mean they have to have every experience be a good one. You can have an adult come into a class, I don't want to say have a bad time, but they could have a shitty time because it was really hard or this would involve a lot of repetition. But an adult can process that. An adult can go, this isn't so bad. It was hard work. It was a lot of the same thing, but I know this is required. Kids don't think like that. No. If you've had to do the same thing for 20 minutes, kids are bored and they don't want to go the next time. Yeah. So what we do with kids is when we have their warm-up consists of a game, something hard, a game, something hard, a game. So you've always got a game on either side of it. Then we'll do some technique, and the technique often involves a little bit of game, a little bit of questions. If you get the question right, you get a big prize. And then if they train well at the end, we play another game. So that we're always sandwiched by, even if they think the training was unpleasant, which it's not. It's nobody's ever getting hit. They're hitting pads, or they're hitting air, they're hitting the bags. But even if they thought the training was boring, they won't remember that. They remember the play. They remember the socializing. They remember the interactions. It's the feeling for kids as opposed to the technique, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes total sense. And what can you expect as a starting guy? I'm not asking for like the perfect cost and all that. And you can even generalize around the whole industry. How much would be a cost-wise to get a kid started inside these type of activities?
So I'm a believer that boxing is a street-level art. It should be something that's accessible to everybody. Much like basketball and sport, all you need is a ball and some shoes and you can play. Really, all you should need is a pair of shorts and some shoes and you can come in. We've got gloves that we loan to our participants. They generally buy their own relatively soon. Nobody wants to wear somebody else's gloves for a long time. But if you just want to come in and train, you really pay the membership fee and that's it.
Okay.
We're actually looking at new ways of engaging the community. When I ran for public council in 2016, one of the biggest things that was mentioned for me as a city councillor was please get some funding or some pathway for our teens to be doing something constructive. So in order to engage the teens more, and from my angle to be able to engage veterans who have PTSD, veterans who have medical issues, especially mental health issues, we're actually starting up a program once we start back that's going to be a sponsorship program, a corporate sponsorship program, where businesses from around town will donate $50 per membership, and those memberships can go out to people in need in the community for free.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. And we don't have too much time left, but maybe you can give a quick little shout out to some of your coaches and your staff there, because I know something like this kind of the size of your club is not something you and your wife can tackle on by yourself. No, you have a lot of help there. So maybe give a little praise to some of your staff there, not too long of a time, but in a minute or two, maybe you can give a little praise to some of your staff.
We've got a great staff, and we've actually just partnered with Jody Sauve with Inner Strength Fitness. She's now at
which we had on our show a couple weeks ago, actually.
Oh, right, that's right. And we're super stoked to have her there as a physical trainer. We've got some massage technicians there. We're looking to get nutritionists and physiotherapists. We're bringing in a young fella, Sammy Regan, as our Muay Thai instructor. Very excited about that. Wesley Ward is our jiu-jitsu instructor. He's passionate and fantastic. He just won a major tournament in, he's going to kill me if I get it wrong, New York.
We won't tell him.
Yeah, he'll hear this and I'll get a message in 10 minutes, I guarantee it, if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it was New York, but it was a huge competition, and he won a gold medal in that. So that's a very good. Some of our instructors for our ladies and our kids are some of the girls from our competitive program, and I've actually just picked up, super excited about it, a two-time provincial champion boxer from Oshawa who's from Pembroke. She's moved back to Pembroke, and now Noel Shangra is coming on to act as our assistant coach, and we're super stoked about that as well.
Very cool. That's an awesome list that you got there, and I know, like, I don't think there's any program like this or any gym like this probably in the whole Ottawa Valley other than you guys. So I think
there's not.
And I think it's a great, especially when you're right downtown too, because everybody can find you. That's for sure.
Once we open up again, we'll have everything from boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu. We're working on judo. We've got Muay Thai, and we will also have an MMA program. And the thing I want to stress, I guess, is that all of these programs will encompass a competitive program as well. Every one of our programs is designed for the ring, and we'll be having people in the ring when we start these programs as well.
So awesome. I can see the credits lining up. Show is about to end. How do we find you? How, where are you connected on social media? Where's your gym located quickly? And final words.
We're on Pembroke Street, right beside Jana and Carey's. There's my little shout out to Jana and Carey's. We're right beside them now at 21 Pembroke Street West. I've lost what the other stuff you were saying.
Social media. You have your website, PembrokeBoxingClub.ca.
Yeah, PembrokeBoxingClub.ca. We're also very active on Instagram and on Facebook. If you look up Pembroke Boxing, you'll see a lot of stuff on us from there as well.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for being our guest today. I know it was something that not only myself was looking forward to. I mean, you and I have known each other for years, and you and your wife and I, we've done stuff together. So I was glad to have you on here. And I know our director, Tiana, was happy to get you on here because I know her son's interested in maybe coming in. So I think this will be a help for everybody. And I hope you guys nothing but success with this whole COVID-19. I know it's been stressful for everybody, but I know you're going to be successful. I know you as a person. You're just ambitious and you're willing to go for it. So, and I'll be voting for you if you run for council again. So
I will be.
Thanks for being our guest today, Jason, and you take care.
John.